Good to see you all. Thanks for joining our session today on Is Faster Better? So it's the first session of our Leadership Performance Exchange. So we're going to do one of these each month. We're going to pick something that's topical and we are going to have conversations. So we'll be doing some presenting and sharing some things, some frameworks to have a conversation about this. And we want to hear from all of you as well, because while we do have Angus Scott, who has been doing AI for a long time, uh, what's going on out there in the world is I don't think any one person can really claim to have authority over anything at the moment. So we want to hear from some of you as we go through all of this. So let's do our introductions. First of all, not for everybody here, just really for Angus, who's our host for this first session. Angus, you want to share a little bit about yourself and your background?
Sure. Um, I'm Angus Scott. Um, I've had 30 years or so in financial services technology. I had COO roles, so leadership development and governance at Credit Suisse, Bridgewater Associates, and Bank of America. I'm also a coach. I'm Brown trained through the ACT program. I think it was 2023. I went through that. So ICS certified coach. Recently, for the last year, I've been working at a major financial services firm using AI on a daily basis to build AI dashboards for a leadership team to help them lead better. So, right at the intersection of leadership development, leadership governance, and AI. And I've learned a lot through that. And I'm hoping to give you some insight today as we go through the discussion.
Thank you, Angus. I know many of you, but brief introduction. I'm one of the co-founders of ACT and have been doing. I originally trained as a consultant, as a CPA many years ago. I was a consultant for a good 20 something years, so doing a lot of organizational change work. And then set up ACT and been doing leadership coaching, team coaching, that sort of thing ever since. But we do consulting work in organizations. And obviously, there's a lot of relevance in this topic for everybody. And it's coming up in every conversation we have with clients. So that's why we're having this conversation today. Okay, so let's get started. We're going to record this call. Let's get some slides going here because that's what we do. Okay, so here's the title, Is Faster Better? So AI is making a lot of the work faster, and I don't think anyone really will dispute that today. So we're sort of taking that as a given. We're going a little deeper into saying, well, what is that doing for leadership performance? That's really the question that we're going to be looking at. And we're going to be taking two perspectives on this. So Angus, do you want to share a little bit more about your perspective?
Yeah, for sure. And I think everyone should know that we're going to debate this. We're going to take two positions and we're going to disagree agreeably as we go through this. My position is, the volume of decisions arriving at leaders is compounding, because of AI and because of technology in general. So faster as something that's happened through time, and we'll discuss that in a bit. So faster has always been better, and it's also inevitable, and you have to deal with it. The question isn't whether you lean into AI or not. It's a question about whether you do it deliberately or it happens to you. Um, I believe strongly there are good ways to leverage AI and automation to make yourself a better leader and to lead organizations more effectively. Um, and there are bad ways to do it, and there's some consequences of not doing it well. And that's what we're going to be here to argue about. So I'm the pro AI. AI, if you use it well, will make you a better leader person in this discussion.
Cool. And I'm not the anti-AI. So just to be clear, I'm there's the inevitability of AI and what it is doing. And as I said before, it is definitely making things faster. I'm looking at some of the consequences of that for leadership performance and stepping back and looking broadly at leadership performance and saying, is it actually ultimately improving performance? Okay, so we won't have many slides like this, but just to put some framing around this. So changing context. So what do we mean by context? Well, the big context obviously is that we are, for most of us anyway, I know there's a lot of you in government, non-profits, but the sort of underlying assumption is that we are in corporations, right? So we want to be doing things better, we want to be doing things faster, we want to be doing things maybe less expensive, cheaper, and we want to be improving that performance, that quality, all of the time. And so just putting that broader frame around all of this. And then really, when we look at power, pace, and norms, which is how we define context, we're looking at how power dynamics really are shifting with AI. And so looking at maybe somebody that had, 40 years of expertise, uh, maybe undermined or undercut by somebody who can do really good prompts, right? In that moment, can maybe come up with some better analysis, broader points of view, all of those things. And then pace and norms are sort of connected in a way. So obviously the gap between a question and an answer is being crushed, right? It's like, what's the question? Ask the prompt, get a response. And so the norms are shifting as well around how we relate to each other in that. And there's things that are getting squeezed in the middle of that. So that's what's shifting. And so the question there is, well, what's it doing to leadership performance? And with leadership performance, we're taking the simplest definition for today, which is, of course, it's about results, but it's also about the things that create those results, the relationships. So we're looking at broader things like the culture of the organization. We're looking at the sustainability of those results. We're looking at the developmental aspects of, are we still able to create those things moving forward? So that's kind of some of the relational aspects of that. So we're going to start by asking you a question, which really frames this session. So we're going to do a poll in the SEC around, has AI made your decisions better or just faster? So slightly provocative, slightly ambiguous, but that's how we start conversations. So let's see what you come up with. We'll give you a few seconds to do that. Angus, what do you think they're coming up with here?
I don't know. I can't see the results yet.
That's why I asked you.
I reckon it's going to be about 50-50,
Yeah.
but that's a guess without a lot of insight. But we'll see.
It's interesting because it's very similar to some of the data. All right, we'll close the poll now. So better was 40%, faster was 60%. Interesting. So we will come back to that as we go through this conversation. All right, so we're going to get ourselves set up. Angus is going to start making a case for faster being better, right? So he's going to take a historical perspective around this.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the AI revolution is just the next phase of the industrial revolution laid out here. And every step along the way here, we have pushed work down to machines and decisions up to humans. So the complexity, the volume, the velocity has increased as you go back in time, as you go through time here. From the steam engine to factories, around the railways, management theory was invented, as management as a discipline was invented. telco, you can manage over distance, get more information, manage remotely, computers, analysis and control, the internet. Started to introduce much more information, more broadly that you can synthesize yourself. And then AI really is about producing for the first time. So generative AI is producing output. That is a new thing, of course, and it's either producing code if you're coding, or documents, or presentations, or recommendations. And it does that based on some rules that you give it. So it's a twist. Earlier steps along this staircase have been around people specifying what needed to happen. Here in the AI world, you're just describing it and AI is producing it. So really, it puts a much stronger emphasis on judgment. So you need to be able to decide what you're going to trust in the AI landscape. So if you take that mindset, humans are no longer producing; they are judging, and leading into judgment and what you can trust as being the most critical thing. Then that's all AI is really. It moves the decision point from, okay, another human has produced something and I need to judge their opinions and whether it's any good or not, to a computer has produced something and I need to judge whether it's any good or not. So leadership to me is part of the same continuum. AI is massively increasing the volume, massively increasing the pace, but at the fundamentals, judgment and to be a good leader, you have to judge well, is what this is all about.
Yeah. So Angus, in your opinion, AI will make leadership performance better?
I think AI will make leadership performance better if you use it well. And it's just another step in this continuum laid out here.
Yeah. Okay. Any thoughts or comments on what Angus has said so far? We're going to open it up just very briefly. You can actually share if you want to say something, but we're going to keep things moving. But we'd love to hear from you before I counter that.
Jeff has his hand up for a question or a comment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hey, Jeff.
Hey, Mike, part of what I've experienced, you were talking about, faster, a historical corporate narrative is the boss says they want something. It's not very clear what they want. People go off and work on it. They come back. The boss says, that's not what I wanted. They add some clarity. They go off and work on it again. With AI, the quality of your results is directly resulting from the quality of your direction.
Yeah.
And so some leaders are having to learn how to actually be clear about what they want. Whereas in the past, they've been able to simply say, that's not what I wanted. That's not what I wanted. But that's the slow loop. The fast loop is being clear from the start and then iterating from there.
Yeah. And thank you for that. And we're going to that's building, I think, or at least how I will interpret that on my side of the of the story when I build my case will be around what is lost in that iteration of going back and forth between the boss and the employee. What gets lost there. So yeah, thank you for that comment. Let's hear from Yuvin, Chrissy, and then we'll move on.
Terrific. I love this slide, but essentially it's a slide about how I'm interpreting it. Human in the loop. At each stage, there was the human in the loop, from steam all the way to the internet. The challenge we're having, we talk about human in the loop, now human on the loop. Where exactly should the human fit in? The challenge many are posing in AI is that for the first time, this technology may be challenging the concept. Now, as coaches, probably the human should not be in the loop.
Actually, Yuvan, I can't hear what you're saying. If you
Are
could.
you able to hear me now?
Yeah, that's better. Yeah.
I'm
Thanks.
sorry about that. My question is just the human in the loop has always been at each of these stages from Steam to the internet.
Yeah.
I believe that we should have the human in the loop in AI, but others are challenging that. For the first time, we're unsure where we fit in, because there is a scenario in which that it could be smart enough to come across as trust. So the question becomes is where do you decide and how do we fit in this human in the loop question? And I'd love to get thoughts on that. I have a
Yeah.
bias us being there, but I'm listening to challenges of some folks saying, actually, I'm able to get 99% of what I want from the quick fix.
Good. We'll stick around because that is what we'll be discussing. Thank you. Chrissy.
Thank you. So I had a couple of thoughts, actually, based on what both Yuvan and I'm sorry I didn't catch the first guy's name, his first name.
Yeah.
Oh, Jeff, exactly. First of all, I'm thinking about distributed leadership, and in a distributed leadership model, the leader doesn't necessarily have to be completely clear because it's a matter of coming together with what clarity. You may know what the outcome is way in the what you want, but how you get there may not be clear. And I think that this is a quicker way, or it's a faster way that we're getting to a lot of different questions about what is the better way to get there, or could be the better way. And then to what Yuvan said, I absolutely agree that the human needs to be there, because I think in the first time in the history of mankind, we are building a super intelligence, something that's smarter than we are. And we're doing it on purpose, that it's going to be smarter. And I think that goes back to what was in the last slide, was the relationship, the relational part that has to be, that's the human part. That's what has to be there. So those were my two comments.
Thank you. And once again, that will lead us. Angus, you got anything else you want to share there? And then we'll go in and I think weave in Chrissy, Jeff, and Yuvan's.
For sure. I mean, I think that's all very valid. And I think human in the loop, leader in the loop, there's no getting away from that. We have to bound these conversations a little bit. And I think in the current iteration of AI, and maybe for the next few years, you are going to need humans in the loop, because AI continues and will continue to make mistakes. So yeah, and it's all about judgment and using your critical thinking skills to be able to assess whether the work product you are looking at is actually true or not true.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, so here is my counter. So I think, as we said, as Angus has said, the short-term results right now, there's evidence, and we'll share a little bit of that evidence that, bunging something into AI ChatGPT will get you something back that is clearly faster and maybe at a more transactional level is a lot better, right? And it gets results. So the seduction of that is why wouldn't you do that, right? It's and I feel like there's a bit of, certainly even myself, a lot of the time is just chuck it into Claude, just get Claude to do it. And even with ACT, it's like, why wouldn't we do that? Why wouldn't we put some of these things into Claude and get a quick response? But when you take a step back and look at, okay, what is actually going on? And this is really to Jeff's point. We often call it friction, right? Which is what actually happens in that engagement between you and somebody else in the past, right? When you ask somebody, and Angus said, the production was done by somebody. So go away and do a cost benefit analysis. Go away and come back with a pros cons, whatever it is you're asking somebody to do. My argument here is that when that happens, we lose a lot of those interactions. So it's more, here's an output, now go away and see if that works or not. So we're losing the interactions, we're losing the connections that are happening. Some of this is from an efficiency perspective. It's like $40 billion a year are wasted in ineffective meetings. So you could argue, well, a lot of that sitting around disagreeing and stuff is going to go away, and that's a good thing for business, right? We can get to decisions quicker. So good, right? That's a judgment. I would say, why not, right? But what is being lost is, and again, I'm sticking sort of with Jeff's point and building on that. You know, a boss may sit down, think about an old apprenticeship model where you would sit down, you would explain something, you would get them to do something. There would be iterations coming back and forth. You would coach them, right? If you're a good leader, and you would ultimately build their own capacity to do things. And so my case here is that things like that are being lost in those interactions, in those connections between these different parts of the organization. So it's not just about the decision, it's the learning that goes into those decisions. And that's the piece that I'm saying is lost. And so obviously the next point really is that developmental piece, which is people stop developing. The production is where I think the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that has to sit down and work through and create and vision something. In this environment, if you're given an output, something is produced, and then you are there to review it, that is a whole different cognitive skill. And that's not to say we shouldn't be doing that. We do that anyway, but we would likely become more reliant on that, right? Sort of like get the output, then go back and challenge it. So it's almost like we're doing things slightly in reverse. And then with all of this, ultimately, my case is that it reduces leadership performance. And so this effectively is a vicious cycle where, there's an erosion of our own confidence in and trusting in ourselves. And with that, there is a greater dependency. And I don't want to get into catastrophizing and more of a societal thing, but it's like, are we then as humans losing our ability to think critically, relate to others? And is the supercomputer going in the other direction, right? So is there this continuous erosion that's going on here? So that's kind of what I'm saying here. So results get better. That's the seduction of this. And in a context, an environment of business where it's like, get that to me by Friday. You see your next quarter results looking good. It's like we're all doing it right now. Everyone's jumping in there. And the piece that is a little uncertain is what is happening to the relationships. So leadership performance, results, and relationships. One side is getting better. The other side, I would argue, is getting worse. Angus.
Yeah, I think the paradigm is changing for sure. And I think the production of output, the production of work product is largely going to be removed and given to AI, particularly in white collar jobs over the next few years. However, I still think the boss apprentice model is going to exist. The apprenticeship role changes, not from somebody who produces output, it's someone who QCs output, critiques it, uses their critical thinking skills, make sure that it's valid, take the devil's advocate position, challenge the AI, run pre-mortems on it to validate whether it's okay or not. So I can see an argument where actually the development of the prefrontal cortex, Mike, where you were going with that, is actually enhanced because they have to really use their critical thinking to be able to assess whether the thing that they are looking at is good or not. And of course, you can use other AIs to help you with that. I've done a lot of coding over the last 6 months or so, and I use one AI agent to code and one AI agent from another company to QC the code. And my prompts on the QC side are, be brutally honest, is this any good or not? And so I have dueling AIs helping to assess. So I think there's the model of teams, the model of bosses and junior people on teams still exists, but the role of the junior person is going to change dramatically in the age of AI, and it's going to be more assessing rather than producing.
Yeah. And Angus, you do have the advantage in that you are working in industry, right? And you are seeing this moment to moment. All I hear is anecdotal. And I do hear a lot of different things, and a lot of it's catastrophizing, and a lot of it's probably biased towards coaching still being needed. But you're in the coalface of, COO world. And so is that what you're seeing happen? Like, are you still seeing people recruiting? Are you still seeing
Yeah,
development?
and absolutely, if we take a sort of tangential view to our debate, I'm in a financial services firm, which is an early adopter, and is all in on AI. But if you think about many industries, and they're really just starting out, and I think it'll take many years for organizations to shift and for the real benefits to be felt. So I think we have some time. Probably it's got not a lot of time, but some time for a transition. But I do think the workforce dynamic, the workforce makeup will shift to this, lean into AI heavily in your work and use it to help you critique what is going on.
Yeah. Good. We got some comments in the chat. I don't know if anyone wants to come off mute and share what you got in here. Giving some really good examples of where some of the consequences of using AI, right, with teams and that sort of thing. Anyone want to share anything? Karen.
Hi there. So I love this slide, and I love the discussion today as well. I think for me, coming from a place where years of leadership, and also managing a large organization and teams, I think AI. I don't think anybody's disputing the presence of AI. I think I'm sitting here thinking and debating, should leadership start accepting that AI is another human in the room and not a replacement? And so it's from a leadership perspective, it's in the room, and how do we now welcome this new human and treat it? Because I think also your key word, Mike, which I love as well, about relationships, so that we don't remove that from the workplace and culture. And we start to then not break down the learnings, but the learnings are changing, which is what Angus is pushing us. Corporations, organizations are going to have to think how they behave, how they recruit, what skills do they need in their organization, how do you set up for your future, knowing that AI is a very strong participant in your company now.
Sure.
But you've
I mean, a
got
good
to
example
control.
of that is the digital employee concept, where you can have a digital employee on the org chart, and I know of places where they're actually doing that. So a team will be made up of 6 humans and 2 digital employees with an employee ID, and if they were physical, they'd have a physical badge to get in the building, etc. They have a role in the workday system. So I do think digital employees, thinking them as part of the team, and how do you hold them accountable through good critical thinking, QC, making sure their output is good, etc. Ultimately, it puts a lot more load on the leader, because you can't actually fire a digital employee. But I guess the boss can be fired for not managing their digital employee well. So
and I think for me, it's how you raise the bar. So for me, if AI is here to stay, so I don't think anybody's disputing that. So how does it help us raise the bar of leadership, raise the bar of output, and raise the bar of performance of whatever organization, company we're working within? And I think that's the pressure we're under. So that drives even better results and better learnings and better development.
100%
Yeah.
agree with that.
And I think, Karen, you've almost like, if we went back to Angus's slide, you've almost like added another bar or added another dimension to AI, which is happening right now, which is not just producing a report, it's actually with digital employees potentially becoming part of the leadership team. And it's almost out of scope because I can't wrap my head around it just yet.
Yeah.
But it's definitely there. And some of you, maybe you're already, building them into your team structure. Let's hear from Lisa, Jeff, Brian, and Ravisel, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, having spent the last couple of decades in supply chain and supply chain optimization, that's where I think AI can be incredibly powerful, but only if all of the data inputs are accurate. And a lot of companies, they're not all accurate. So who's going to be that person that says, wow, that something just doesn't look right? And then you find out that logistics lanes are completely costed incorrectly. So I think to what people have said, you've got to have some human judgment, and then you might put more emphasis on different parts of your organization to make sure data is accurate.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. And building on that, like who's accountable, as Angus said, like who's accountable? So that can start getting a little lost. Jeff.
I like the short-term, long-term frame. I like to connect that with how we are already seeing that the generation coming into the college age is the first generation to score worse on critical thinking due to how they're growing up. And the long term, this question about it's both how you use AI, but also the ability to think critically to use the AI better. I'm not seeing as much about that of how do we actually keep on upskilling our team to become far better users of this new technology.
Yeah, what does development look like leadership development programs, and not just leader, but manager and employee development programs look like moving forward? And I can tell you from working and talking with we do talk to a lot of organizations and learning and development professionals. All they know is that what they've got right now isn't landing anymore. So there's an opportunity there for learning and development folks to start thinking about, and Jeff and others, you're making some really good points there. Like then just to the next consequence is, so what does development look like moving forward?
I mean, I could chat on the loss of critical thinking in the younger population. That could be an artifact of the education system not catching up. And that, we obviously won't have caught up yet because it's going to take time. But if students are judged on producing output rather than critiquing output, they're going to use AI to produce output, and they're going to lose their critical thinking.
Yeah.
And I think that's happening in the corporate world. I certainly am seeing it in my environment. And that's part of the challenge, is that you get those short-term results, but you don't have, I think there's going to be a differentiation between the teams that are highly effective at bringing what the human can bring to mate up with what the AI is capable to do.
Yeah. Before we go, it was as we were preparing this, I was thinking like we are going through a revolution right now, and the last one felt like was .com, right? It was a whole different way of disintermediation, cut out the middle person, all of this stuff that went through, but it never felt that scary because, well, it did feel scary if you were in the middle, right? Because you potentially going to lose your job. Although a lot of those jobs seem to come back with all the chaos that went on for the next 15, 20 years. But it was transactional. And now it's something different. And I think, for an early stage of a revolution, it's like people don't really know what's going on and they don't really have a response to it. At some point, this will settle, I imagine, like most revolutions, and we get ahead of it, or maybe not with this one. But it feels like we have more questions than answers at the moment. And So yeah, Ravito, let's hear from you.
Yeah, so Ravital.
Ravito,
So
sorry.
my point is around there is already research that shows that judgment is eroding. So we are requesting people to go and exercise judgment, to audit the AI, but we are learning that there is both research with surgeons and research with students that after you use AI continuously, you are not able to make the same decisions that you've done before. So the misuse of that muscle actually has an impact on us as humans and is just basically something that will continue. So how are we thinking about the fact that this muscle is not exercised and our judgment will erode over time? So our ability to audit will erode over time.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll even lose the ability to review what we're seeing, not let alone, produce it.
Yeah, exactly. It's
Yeah.
like it's a
Well,
matter, right? We're not using it, and there is research that shows already that people that are using it continuously, they cannot do things that they were able to do before AI.
Yeah.
but
Well said.
I'm going to take the counter view because that's my job on this webinar. You've identified the problem. That the job is to produce something, and if you use AI to produce it, you forget how to produce it yourself. What if the job isn't ever to produce it? The job is to critique it, to QC it, to make sure it's right, to make sure it's valid, and you exercise the muscle that way. And that's where we're heading, I believe. Production of PowerPoints, Word documents, emails, proposals, recommendations, whatever it is, code is largely going to be delegated to AI. And the human role, the human in the loop, will be, how do I know this is right? And developing the muscle to be aware of I don't know what I don't know, so I'm going to have to find out whether this is right or not, is a very important thing. So I think the education system, training of new employees, development of middle managers, whatever it is got to focus on critical thinking and judgment, not production of content. Like I saw a lawyer pop up and being very concerned. The paralegal role, is largely probably under threat, right? Because that's a production type job, which you can do pretty well with AI now. But how somebody still has to figure out whether the AI is accurate.
Yeah,
And
but
that's
yeah,
going to be the case for the next few years.
there is also research that shows that many people actually don't check their output as much as we expect. A lot of people submit output that were not audited. So that's I think another thing. We are making sure that the audit is thorough enough, is researched enough. People are like the AI output looks so reliable sometimes that we are just like the seduction is to just go and say, let's just use it. So I think that's something to keep in mind.
Resist the seduction, I would guess, is there.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, well, if you think about some of the neuroscience around some of this, like the brain is somewhat lazy, right? It looks to figure something out, move on to the next thing. It's kind of a survival thing. And, thinking and doing hard work takes energy, right? And that's not something that we always love to naturally do. And I think that's where the seduction comes in, is like, oh, I don't have to think that through anymore. I can get this AI to do that for me. Brian, we're going to hear from you, and then we're going to move on. And Andrew, we'll try and weave your question in after this.
Thank you. Hopefully you can hear me. I was thinking a lot about, I'm coming from the healthcare space where the product or the outcome is actually, caring for another human being. And we're seeing AI, and we know that AI is really good at, taking a chief complaint, analyzing a set of vital signs, even, assessing a physical exam that's put into it and coming up pretty accurately with a diagnosis. And so what I see in this slide where the learners right now, the training students and residents are using AI to, generate in some ways like very accurate short-term results, which means that the outlier cases, those head scratchers, those things that require someone to say, hey, something's not right here, or like there's a nuance, or there's like, I hate to say like the art of medicine, but there's things about, developed expertise over time that are going to that they're required to, unlock some of the cases that we see. And one of the things I worry about is that the juniors that are, in this learning stage right now, they're not necessarily developing those synthetic skills, so that someday when they're the senior attending and they have to be, then the buck stops with them. I worry that they may not be as well prepared, having had the body of, reps and experience. And in the parallel here is with leadership, only the most challenging and complex cases are going to, with AI's assistance and solving all the, the low hanging fruit, so to speak. The most complex problems are going to land on that leader's lap, and how well prepared will they be a generation from now is something that I think about.
Yeah, I love that point. I'm going to add that to my my argument. You think about it, it never even crossed my mind, but you think like leaders get to their position mostly, I mean, through their intelligence, through their charisma, through all of those amazing things that they have, but they also get there through their experience. So that when there's a really gnarly, horrible problem that no one else can solve, they get called in and it's like, okay, with my 50 years of doing this, I've seen everything and I can help. And they got there through all the things that many of you have been talking about, through producing, through problem solving, through engaging with other people, through seeing these things 1,000 times. And the risk, well, I'm not going to reiterate what you said. The risk is that gets lost over time. They just don't, the next generation just won't be able to do that. All right, we're going to keep moving. So there's some data here. We will put this in the chat if you want to read more. A couple of them are BCG. They support the point, first one, that 25%. So of the 758 people that were studied, this was 2023, so it could be outdated right now. But 25% said things were faster and 40% said they were better. How did they define better? They had and again, this is all in the article, but they had a list of evaluation criteria around how they defined better. So that part isn't really in dispute. Angus, you want to say anything about the next couple?
Yeah, I mean, I think the stop checking, they won't notice thing. There's another trial which shows another lens on this, and we'll send this out in the pack too. This was 640 business owners in Kenya, in Africa, and they'd actually measured it through business performance, and they found that of the businesses that perform well, the strong performers, 15% of those gained through AI, and the businesses that didn't do well, they lost by 10%. So it's differentiated on performance, and you might join the dots and say, good leaders use AI well, bad leaders use AI badly because they don't judge. In the past, if you had a person giving to you something that was bad output and you read it, it would probably arrive as a bad presentation, bad email. In the conversation, you would find holes in their judgment. It now arrives beautifully packaged, and the prose is good, the grammar's perfect. And so some of those signals you have that something's bad are lost because what's coming out of the AI looks great, but is it actually great? And so I'm doubling down really on, it really is important to critically think about what you're looking at. And I've been living this myself for the last 6 months, trying to code with AI, and it will tell me all the time, oh yeah, I've debugged your problem, and it's all good to go now. And I go, actually, have you done that? Oh, no, I didn't really do that. I did something else instead. And you iterate through it, and you have to ask questions, and you have other AIs ask the AI questions, and eventually you get to a point where it's good. So, judgment, critical thinking are the most important skills we have to develop.
I think the piece that we might be losing there is, the visibility. So, Angus, you're a super smart guy and very analytical as well as everything else, but what to ask it, right? Whereas for others, they may not know that. Now, if they didn't have AI, something would probably go wrong in a meeting, or they'd get challenged, or it wouldn't get very far probably without someone seeing something. Whereas now it's like no one would ever know. Like that is invisible.
It's really interesting. Yeah. And I think it's very highly incumbent on the current leaders to make sure they are training the up and coming people to be able to make the same judgments they do.
Yeah.
Now, you could argue that the only way of doing that is through producing the product, but what if the product production is going away? You have to find another way of training. So,
yeah. All right. So we have one little last piece for you, which Angus, you want to talk through this one?
I think this is just a scale that we've developed, and you can put different things on it. The AI decides easy decisions. I think on the next slide, we may have expense approval as an example, or all the way to the other end where a real human decision of promoting somebody or hiring somebody into a leadership position is a human to human level contact and unlikely to go away soon. But this has happened over the decades that we generally pushed more decisions down into the machines. The question is, how far do we go with this? And how far do we go with it in the age of AI? So, Mike, do you want to tee up the middle bucket?
Yeah. So if you want to put in the chat in a sec, we're just going to play with one. I think it's interesting. A lot of you have already said a lot of this already without even being prompted. But let's just imagine for a moment, we're just going to play with one example, that an organization is choosing a new system. So it could be as large as an enterprise system. It's something that is going to be complex, cross-functional, so and consequential, right? So it's high risk, and it's going to just impact a lot of people, customers, vendors, other stakeholders as well. Now, let's imagine that we were to get AI to do most of the work in making that selection. If we did, what would be gained and what would be lost? So just think about that for a moment. And if you don't understand the question, I'm happy to repeat it. Okay, Jeff, humans need to co-create the decision to understand the trade-offs and build the buy-in. Right, nice. And it's really just sort of understanding really clear what the decision is.
So if we are choosing a new system and the humans are going to have to live in it,
right,
all of them have trade-offs.
Right.
If that's dictated by some
AI,
right, then nobody has bought in, so no one's willing to persevere through the hard stuff.
Yeah. Sounds like you've been through some big change programs over the years. Yeah, if they don't have the buy-in, I mean, oh, that's such an obvious one. I didn't even think of that. And I was doing this work for 20 years. Yeah, if they're not bought into it, then the years of designing it, right, and testing it and everything else is the work. What else have we got here? Understand the trade-offs early and help guide them through the team when to use it. What's gained: time and creative ideas, lost human connection, critical thinking, analytical processing, one rule of thumb that I like to use is that AI most valuable when addressing bottlenecks. If the buy-in is in the bottleneck, it's not for AI. Nice. Gains the ability to test ideas before implementation. Yeah. Angus, anything on Kim's comment there?
Yeah, I think Mike, maybe where we start to come together. I think on a scale of a decision of this scale, probably not delegate the final decision to AI, but you can probably get 95% of the way there by doing things like ensuring that you're feeding the AI the full context of the decision, so it knows about your company, your org charts, your revenue, your profits, your customers, everything that you need to do, your employees. You can give it access to your internal databases, so it can actually understand the teams and what everyone's working on, and it can, through those, access that information, because AI is only as good as the data that you're putting into it, make a more powerful recommendation. You can also use my technique I mentioned earlier of using a second AI to challenge the first one, to say, be brutally, and that's prompt the second one, be brutally honest about this recommendation. Is it any good or not? And you can get quite a lot out of that. I challenge Claude with OpenAI all the time. And it's pretty interesting what you think you're on a good track, but the OpenAI model will find a lot of problems with what Claude has done. So you can, that's triangulation. That's something that we've always done as people, as leaders, that we get other points of view, which leads me into an area where I want to go as we close into it, like being open-minded and being aware that you're likely to be wrong, and you don't know what you don't know. Is having that mindset is crucial as you work with these tools, because if you are overconfident and you believe it too much, you are going to end up trusting it too much and making bad decisions.
Yeah. Yep. Thank you. So drawing this to a close, AI is clearly making work faster. I think that's pretty conclusive. So the questions more is like how it's improving leadership performance. And so hopefully we've at least given something here more broadly to think about, and just being in this conversation around leadership performance. At the end of the day, for us, we still believe it goes back to just being a responsible leader and being aware of what you're doing every time you're making that decision, asking yourself, what are the consequences here? Yes, it might improve results right now, but what are some of the longer term consequences of all of this? And I think it does, I don't know, it does then extend beyond the context of business, in my opinion, which is, we want to keep developing humans. And so it's just keeping that in mind. It's like, we put our business hat on. I hear so many people saying, I'm so pleased I don't have to relate to this team anymore. I don't need them anymore. It's like, yes, I get that to some extent, and it does make you more efficient, but just being responsible to, yes, what's being gained, but what's being lost. And that leaves us with a question that will open up another one of these sessions. And that is, what does leadership development need to look like? I honestly don't, from everybody I've spoken to, I don't see anyone that has a really nice, clear model of a leadership development program or what that looks like at the moment. A lot of stuff that's being created and discussed, but it's an evolving thing right now, and I think this conversation is hopefully helpful in framing what that will look like in the future.
I do think on that, Mike. I'm just going to double down on some of the things I said earlier. Critical thinking, self-awareness, awareness what your strengths are or what your weaknesses are, is a foundation for any kind of leadership development program, because you need to know yourself and what you're good at and what you're not good at, to be able to use these very powerful tools where, AI is a massive amplifier an amplifier of your strengths, an amplifier of your weaknesses. So if you lack self-awareness, then you're at risk of using the tools badly. So I think that is a foundational thing. And obviously self-awareness is a foundational thing for leadership development anyway.
Yeah, thanks, Angus. Thanks to all of you. I love these comments, and I will put them all into AI and get a summary. No, I'm joking. I will actually read all of these with Angus. And Jeff, if you are an ACT alum, Jeff During, and you're slightly ahead of, you were faster than I knew that you've actually created an AI group. I thought it was coming later in the year. So we will put the link in the chat if you want to join the AI group. Jeff, anything you want to say about that group? May have lost Jeff.
I think Jeff's dropped off, I think.
And there's just, yeah, so if you want to, find out more, this is ACT. Angus is still very busy. Angus, you should share about yourself.
Yeah, had a long corporate career, but now I'm an independent consultant and coach. Anybody want to reach out to me on AI governance and coaching or leadership development, then my contact details are there. Mike will probably share them with the slides. Find me on LinkedIn or at that email address, and we'd love to connect with you. And also, I've already joined the AI ACT community group on on the community group.
Mighty Networks, yep.
Yeah, Mighty
Thank
Network.
you.
Thank you.
So hopefully you got value out of today. This is the first LPX. The X is exchange. So the idea is that we share ideas, learn and grow together. I appreciate all of your time today. And we look forward to seeing you next month. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.